Welcome to the Family Skeptical, Parenting Through Nonbelief.
We're a married atheist couple raising two wonderful, strange children. We ask big questions, dissect weird parenting moments, and examine how society ignores or misrepresents families like ours. If you're any stripe of non-believer who's involved in raising children, welcome. You are our people.
Our kids have heard all our swears, but yours might not have, so be thoughtful if there are young people listening with you.
What, Mom?
Nothing. I don't know. We should talk about some stuff.
Yeah. No, that would generally be a good idea.
I think so. So, as we have discussed before, we are even closer to being deep into an international move.
Yes.
And I think we've talked before about how Reader and Go take martial arts. And when we started thinking about this move, and I have to say, I have the least connection to their school because you are the one who picked it. You are the one who brings them to all of their lessons. I have gone very occasionally to be there when lessons have happened, but still, it was one of the first places we found when we moved here. And it has been a really great place for the boys. There are some friends that have been with them since they started. And in some ways, it felt like kind of even though we don't have a lot of friends there, in some ways our strongest point of connection to this place. And so when I thought about planning this move, leaving that school was, to me, one of the hardest things to think about. But their relationship with the classes of late has really been changing. And I know you wanted to talk about it.
Well, I wanted to talk about it for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to talk about it as a parent. I wanted to talk about it as somebody who used to train himself, and also as somebody who used to run a martial arts school. And it's been a very interesting sort of skeptical journey for me personally. And I wanted to praise the boys first and foremost for being open to change, for being truthful with their feelings, even when the conversation was difficult. Not having to work too hard to draw out what they were really thinking about. But then beyond that, seeing how even though their current circumstances have proven less than fruitful, that their enthusiasm to continue training, to continue on their journey as martial artists, that enthusiasm persists.
Mm-hmm.
So what it comes down to, in a nutshell, is Go essentially hit a wall when it came to the new format and new instruction method for his striking classes. That he was having an increasingly difficult time finding other kids who were as goal-oriented as he was, and that he felt like he wasn't being listened to in the classes. And a lot of things that ordinarily I might have encouraged and then led him, if he resisted, to discuss with the coach. But seeing how nervous he was about bringing these things up, I don't know whether or not it was fearing he would disappoint his coach, or, he's expressed that he thinks that she is gruff and that he's a bit intimidated by her, that he kept resisting wanting to talk about it with her. And so what I did, stepping back as a parent and as somebody who used to train and somebody who used to train other people, stepping back, I found myself resisting my own urge to essentially force him to confront the situation, knowing the value of what that sort of polite confrontation can lead to, that you can learn that people that you think are scary aren't as scary as you think, that your coaches, even though they're bigger than you and sometimes they bark orders, that they fundamentally want the best for you, that you are braver than you sometimes think you are, that the value of your own training supersedes whatever anxiety you might have about it, all these sorts of benefits that come from facing those sorts of social fears, those anxieties. But the more I drilled down with him, the more I came to accept that I didn't have to. We were moving. That he fundamentally was coming from a place of, I want to train harder. Not, I want to stop. There were plenty of times in my own experience as an instructor and a business owner where I had to work to regain a student's enthusiasm, to reframe their goals, to help them find new ones, to keep them motivated through their training, because everybody waxes and wanes with their enthusiasm in training in any sort of discipline, martial arts or otherwise, just anything. And so based on that experience, I found myself, even as a parent, falling back into that mode of, oh, it's a student, I have to save the student. But then I said, wait a minute, this is my kid. I'm on the other side of the equation now. So how can I, as a skeptic, how can I take what I know is true from my own experience, and how can I leverage that to my child's benefit? And what is my child's benefit? What does that look like? What does the positive outcome here look like? And so I found myself, despite myself and all of my experience in teaching and coaching, letting go, have his way, knowing that my biggest fear was that his enthusiasm would get tarnished. And through that initial 2 stages of this big conversation I had with him, it kept coming back to him wanting to do the thing, wanting to train, wanting to be in a class where all the kids are motivated and they really put forward a lot of effort, and the instruction is very consistent and professional. And while some parts of their current training program are very professional, others are not. And so that makes it very difficult, because for me personally, because I like the coaches there, but just because you like someone doesn't mean that you can take that and give them a blank check when it comes to their professional skills and demeanor. So in stepping back, I found myself being very skeptical in how I appraised the situation. And I just looked at the data that I had. I had a kid who was in tears wanting to train at the level that he wanted to train at. 1. 2, in evaluating new schools in the places that we were thinking of looking at, and that was multiple cities at this point. In both cases, they were in programs that, as an instructor and as a dad, I saw, even just from the drop, were more rigorous and a much tighter ship. And then seeing from my own experience, my success rate at saving students and what I would have to do to get them there. And then beyond that, seeing that this wasn't a student, this was my child, and that I needed to have the longest possible vision for their future as not just a martial artist, but a person, that I found myself making what a couple of years ago would have been an insane decision, to let them have their feelings about this. and to not do their kickboxing portion of their training, which is an option for us. Mm-hmm. The kickboxing portion of their training, instead doing their grappling, their jiu-jitsu, mm-hmm. for the remaining weeks that we're going to be here. And I just thought that was really interesting and worth talking about, because it forced me to come to grips with so many aspects of me, of who I am, but then also deferring as a parent and finding that middle path of discipline and love and motivation. I don't know. I still find myself like thinking about it. Did I make the right decision? Did I do the right things in the right way? And I don't know if I did, but he's nonetheless excited about his jiu-jitsu classes still. Mm-hmm. And he's excited about going to a new school that he's already been to, that he knows it has that culture that I believe would at this point be a better suit for him. And then Reader, out of nowhere, yesterday, was in tears because he felt like he had not been progressing as a jiu-jitsu practitioner. That he used to go to competitions before COVID shut that down. And then since returning to training post-COVID, he's felt stalled out. He doesn't feel like he's returned to where he wanted to be. But then he also, like Go and the kickboxing, he freely admits that when he was doing the jiu-jitsu class, when we were at one of the cities that we were looking at a couple months back, he was in seventh heaven. He was getting his butt handed to him by bigger kids, by more skilled kids, getting thrown all over the place in some regard, but holding his own in others. And he felt motivated, and he felt focused, and he wanted to do it again right away. Mm-hmm. And that it would have been very easy for him to have gotten his butt kicked by kids he didn't know in a place that was big and loud, full of all sorts of adult faces watching him get thrown around by a girl who was, bigger than him, but still, there's all sorts of ego that could have gotten in the way. But all he wanted to do was keep going. And so again, like with Go, I find myself this time much more easily, because I'd already gone through the process, saying, you know what? You're just going to do the last couple of classes, because that's what we promised your head coach, mm-hmm. that we would just be here for the last couple of weeks. And so that's what we're going to do. And you're going to get what you get out of it, but you're going to go into every class knowing that this is a temporary situation, and that moving forward, you're going to be in a program and a culture and also a state, a whole region of the country that is very focused on all things wrestling, grappling, and jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. And that if you are really focused on wanting to get back to things, get back this degree of conditioning and skill that you believe you once had, and then get back into competition, then that is, I think, an even better place to do it. The competition will be more fierce, and I don't know, I think that it'll be good for him overall, even though it is a big unknown. But I love that he trusted me in talking this out with him. And I love that Go trusted me to know the truth about how he was feeling. And so I was just really impressed with them, mm-hmm. but also I was kind of impressed with myself, because I had to let go of essentially of an urge that bubbled up from a different chapter of my life that was still there. That they came with these objections to continuing training. And I instinctively went back to a place that I didn't necessarily have to go back to, that it just happened. And it wasn't necessarily a productive reflex. But in reflecting on that reflex, I found like a wonderful skeptical moment where I just laid out every aspect of the situation on a plate. I gave all of them equal merit, and I just eliminated the things that fundamentally were obstacles. It was a very fascinating moment that forced me to do a lot of extra journaling and a lot of extra reflection. And it just dropped right in my lap. I had no idea that was the sort of calculation that I would have to do for them and for myself going into this move. It was wild. Thank you for letting me get all that off my chest in one big chunk.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like one of the things you have brought to our parenting that is very different than how I grew up, but that I'm so glad you did, is that, when I was young, if I had a conflict or an issue with a teacher or somebody like that, it was really most common for my mom to step in and handle that for me or with me. And, typically when the boys have had an issue, you really encourage them to be the ones to be the first to reach out. And that, kind of thinking about your first instinct as an instructor, like my first instinct based on how I was raised, that felt very uncomfortable. And I didn't know if, given how young they are, if we should sort of be the first ones to step in. But I think in most circumstances, it's really worked way better than I could have imagined, And typically when you've encouraged the boys to reach out, I feel like the feedback, typically people have worked with them, And it's been a really good lesson that they can do that. Thinking about this situation, it's really cool because it would be, beyond just sort of falling back on how you used to do things as an instructor and sort of think about this, to also think really critically. I think it would be easy to be like, well, when there's an issue, like we ask the boys to try to resolve it with the person. Mm-hmm. And that's been really successful. And I think in parenting, it's very easy to kind of fall back on those general principles when, in this situation, like it's not worth it in the situation. Like we're not going to be at this school long enough to make it an issue. Mm-hmm. So to not just sort of fall back on our go-to, but to think about what's really needed in this particular instance. Mm-hmm. And then I'm wondering, did it make you think at all about how you would react if it was a larger issue? Like, I know they're both really excited about training in a new school and kind of seeing what that brings. Sure. But did it change your thinking at all about how you might react if at some point they come and say, like, this is just not something I'm interested in doing anymore?
Yeah, I have. And honestly, I'd be okay with it. Mm-hmm. Like fundamentally, I think that people should have some sense of how to defend themselves. And I think that our kids are rough and tumble enough where it's the sort of activity that helps them channel that. And our kids are active in general. And it's important that kids have socialized physical activities, I think, in some regard that don't have anything to do with school.
Yeah.
But there are other socialized physical activities that they could do outside of school. And I want them to make sure that they give themselves the opportunity to learn how to throw down. But also they need to know that we as parents are there to support them. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm making excuses for taking the path of least resistance always, making it easier for us as parents to just, roll over whenever the kid has some sort of objection or anything like that. Far from it. If anything, what I want is for them to know that we will fight alongside them for their goals that they set for themselves as hard as they will. but they have to know that those goals will be honored by us. And so if they change their goals, we will honor those goals, but it can't be flitting back and forth. It can't be just sort of being in the program to be in the program and spin their wheels. If they're going to be in a program, like that's what I love about Reader saying, in tears, he wants to stop because he feels like he's not progressing. He just wants to do competitions. And in the jujitsu program, the culture has totally changed. They go back and forth with different instructors. And I like the instructors, but the instructors aren't always necessarily focused on the same things. And their original instructors were straight up jits guys, not MMA fighters who happen to like wrestling and jujitsu and will help train that.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the straight up jits guys, that program was specifically geared towards, all right, here's the competition, gearing up for the competition. Let's go. There is none of that anymore. And he needs to see that also, like in how we practice our skepticism, that we help him evaluate and reevaluate his goals, training methods, instruction methods, culture of his school, because he needs to know that we are paying attention to those things, because that's part of us safeguarding his training and him being a person who feels fulfilled. So if that all completely changes, then that's fine. There are other things physically that I know he loves to do,
mm-hmm.
and that I would be happy to support him doing those things because he deserves it. But until such time that he essentially completely fizzles out, then I'm going to help him carve a path that gets him to his goals. So he can see that we value his goals, but also so he can see that he can set a goal, strive for it, and achieve it. And he's good at jujitsu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they both are.
They both are. They like doing it and they're good at it.
I do feel like it's kind of lucky this happened, because I know
sure. I agree. Yes.
There's a school we have our eye on that they will definitely start at. But I think as we've talked about this situation, it's made us, I think, more conscious about evaluating that program and really focusing on finding a place where they're going to be able to get the experience they want.
Yeah.
And I think, at least for me, it made me much more thoughtful. I mean, we know there's a really good school there, but just to, and we're going to try it out. And I think I'm going into that experience more thoughtful and questioning than I would have been if these things had not come up.
That's good.
Like, hopefully it's great, but also just like more open to evaluating it and taking feedback and, thinking if something different might be better, or, I think we just have a better sense of where they're coming from now that they're older.
Well, that's because they know where they're coming from better, which is great. Like he wants to spar.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot of drills and his fundamentals have improved a lot. But at his age, and he's 8 now,
mm-hmm.
there's still no application. And like running a school, I would have 5-year-olds spar.
Yeah.
Like I get the need for like safety and stuff, but it can be done. And part of it is that the way that they run the classes, that's what the instructor's focus allows for,
mm-hmm.
is that, managing a bunch of kids sparring, you can't have all that happen at the same time. That's when injuries are going to happen.
Yeah.
Because you have to stay on top of them because mistakes happen quickly.
Yeah.
Right. And so I get it, but there's never been an attempt, from what I've seen, to set something like that up for the little guys. And like a kid like Go, who's gotten better at the fundamentals, wants to just hit people and have other people hit him. I don't know. I like that. That's ultimately what it's about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want him going to a class and just hitting pads over and over again. What I'm really looking forward to is seeing how he interacts with the striking side of things. I know they're both going to enjoy the grappling side of things at this new school. What I'm really looking forward to is seeing how they do with the striking, with the boxing and the Muay Thai, and then also the like putting it together in MMA striking and then like actual sparring, because kids do that, and I dig that. That was like my favorite part of training. You know, doing forms is cool and all, but getting in there and messing around with your buddies is more fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think it could be good for Go because he's definitely in a place where in games he gets very frustrated as soon as things don't go his way.
Right.
So sparring could be very, very good practice because things don't go your way a lot.
Like ever.
Yeah.
You have all like, you know, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Was it right? Isn't that what Mike Tyson says?
But no, I mean, I get it. I took martial arts for a long time and I stopped because once I became a mom, I could still take the private classes, but I couldn't make any of the group classes or sparring classes. And that's what I really loved. And it just wasn't worth it to me anymore.
Have you talked about that with Go?
No. Maybe. I don't know.
You should.
Yeah.
You should. Because that's going to humanize his situation. He's going to feel like, oh, well, it happened with mom too. Mm-hmm. I guess it's a thing that happens with people.
Yeah.
Maybe he won't feel as, you know, alone or unseen. Like, cause I did the best I could with that. And I talk about how, you know, my own, you know, like physical changes and injuries, you know, ultimately prevented me from being able to spar and grapple, which was sort of like the death knell of my own enthusiasm for training. Because I mean, like, I don't want to teach a dance class, you know? So it's just very interesting that between Go's expectations and readers' expectations and readers' occasional physical issues and my own, and then your parenthood getting in the way of your schedule, preventing you from doing the socialized part of things. Like how it all kind of is coming around where we've all had to deal with that shifting of expectations, the need to revise our training protocols without losing enthusiasm or, you know, taking our eye off of our goals. Mm-hmm. So I love that they came to us about this.
Yeah.
And I just want to do right by that trust.
Should we talk about another thing related to the move?
I think that is inevitable.
So I've been thinking a lot about clutter because I feel like we have very different emotional responses to clutter. Would you say that's true?
I want to burn it. You want to hug it.
Yes. So I was going to say we come from pretty different places, but I don't know if that's true. So, I mean, there's a level almost of hoarding on one side of my family. There have been a lot of people who have just kept a ton of things where at multiple points, different people in my family have had to help people like clear out just attics full of stuff. So I think there's definitely something that runs there. And I would say both of my parents in different ways tend a little bit towards maximalism in beautiful ways.
What does that mean?
If you think about my mom's place, all of the walls are just covered in art.
True.
From floor to ceiling, right?
Yep.
And in a very organized way, she has a lot of different displays that she does.
Mm-hmm.
She does like a marvelous display of sort of like dried grasses and things every winter with like a ton of pots with stuff. She has a lot of interesting displays of bones we found and other things. And it's all very organized, but but there's like a lot going on.
Yeah.
And then my dad's house, I would say, is sort of full of beautiful, fascinating curiosities.
Oh, yes.
So again, every shelf is full of books and little art things and things they've collected. And so I think growing up, my aesthetic much more was towards that side. And I was going to say it's different for you, but I think your dad leans that way as well.
Oh, no, I think that's one of the things that makes you guys get along is that he would happily keep collections of things like drink stirrers or like my grandfather did matchbooks. And then my dad did rocks and shells, much like you did.
Mm-hmm.
Bits and bops. And now he collects wine and art. And he had a huge book collection, a huge record collection. There's a lot of similarity in that regard between our families. I am not necessarily like that. I like collecting books, but I think there's a virtue in having more books than you can possibly read. And I'm not alone in that. Greater minds than mine agree. But my collecting doesn't really extend. I guess maybe if I were to collect anything, it would be art and guitars, but those are currently like not in our budget range.
Yeah.
So, and also we don't really have the space for it. So that
But you do not put things on surfaces.
What does that mean?
I mean, like, I am the one to decorate our mantle.
Sure.
Tops of bookcases. I feel like you have no desire to fill surfaces with things at all.
I don't see it as something that needs urgent address.
Yeah.
Like you do.
I don't know if it's urgent. I mean, so we will go to visit my parents.
How many days would it take if we had an empty mantle? How many days would it take for you to start putting things on top of that mantle?
I would start doing it immediately.
So urgency.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. I'm not leveling it as a pejorative. It's just who you are.
Yeah.
It's what you value. It's like, I don't want to say a compulsion, but I guess, I don't know.
I don't know. So we go to visit my parents and I love being in their spaces and seeing the important things that they have collected around themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But also when we get home to our house, which is much more empty, I also feel like a huge sense of relief.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we've talked about this.
There's a back and forth there.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like people talk about decluttering in a way that I think oversimplifies it.
Does it give you joy?
Does it give
you joy?
I
if
know.
You hold it and it gives you joy.
Well, I think
should you keep it?
Everybody knows. So like obviously Marie Kondo was like the queen of this, right?
And then she had kids.
And she admitted. So Marie Kondo was like an organization expert and was very into folding everything perfectly and getting rid of anything that didn't like
give you joy.
Give you joy.
Give you joy.
And then she had kids and she admitted, she's like, I just can't do it anymore. I'm sorry. I did not realize this doesn't work when you have children.
My apologies to all the parents who I attempted to convince to do this thing. It doesn't work anymore.
Hilarious. Love that. But I keep a lot of things. I don't keep them out.
No.
As the horror of cleaning out our basement proved. I put them away places. But
and then forget about them.
But I don't, because I forget about some things, but I cannot tell you how many times things have come up with the boys where like they want to make something or they need something for a pretend game. And they're like, I need this ludicrous thing that we would never have in a million years. And I'm like, oh,
wait,
but
I have that.
We do have that thing. And so I actually think there is something to keeping things, and it doesn't have to be stuff like, obviously this depends a lot on having space and resources, and there are a ton of different things to consider, but I think there is something to returning to things. I mean, I keep a ton of clothes. We just got rid of a ton of clothes. But I also haven't.
So good.
Yeah, but I also haven't had to buy clothes in a really long time. Like, I got a lot of hand-me-downs from my grandma, and your mom gives me amazing things. And, and for a long time, I was not working at a kind of job where I needed anything nice. And those things just sat there. But at my current job, I've needed to be dressed in, I mean, nobody else does, but I followed the rules. So like, I dress more businessy, and like, it's been wonderful to have all those things. And I love having the things from those people. And
sure,
I feel like part of, I also went through a period where, with all the pregnancies, like my body was definitely kind of different sizes at different times.
Yeah.
And,
oh yeah,
hanging on to clothes and knowing that I had something that would fit me at those different times really helped me feel comfortable with those changes. Where, just sort of accepting that my body was going to be in a state of flux and I would need things in different sizes. Actually, and, different people, different vibes. But like for me, it was actually nice to know that I had those things and that I had things in different sizes that I could wear depending on kind of how things were.
Yeah.
And, it's like.
But saving stuff isn't clutter. If it's organized, then it's not clutter. You're just saving stuff. And that would be more necessary.
But you've also seen our closet. So I would say it was somewhere
but there has to be a balance. Right.
Yeah.
There has to be, like, the thing that I like is, okay, so I've been doing the masterclass thing. And say what you want about it. Like, it's not for everybody. We all learn in different ways. For me, with my ADHD, I like the idea of algorithms. To have an algorithm that I can plug behaviors in and get some sort of reliable result, or a somewhat reliable result, where I don't have to, like, it alleviates the anxiety of performance. It alleviates social anxiety, and it also alleviates my generalized anxiety about wanting to make sure that I do the right thing. And one of the classes that I took was with Tan France, who is amazing and part of the Queer Eye. He he and Anson Mount, if they have some sort of like genetic hybrid, their child will come out of the womb with the most incredible hair.
Yeah.
But I digress. I learned about the idea of a capsule wardrobe, which I obviously, like, plenty of people listen to this and be like, oh, of course, capsule wardrobe. Yeah. But for me, it was a new thing. And the idea of having those sort of those pillars of your closet around which you can create a lot of different looks and have a great degree of utility was really awesome for me. It boiled things down in a really pleasant and comprehensible way. And then I would go into the closet and I would see, your Mount Everest of sweaters.
Mm-hmm.
And
I am not a capsule wardrobe person.
And I would think how different that was for you, that idea, and how I didn't know if that would be something that you would ever be able to get behind. And in that same moment, realizing that's okay. We can be different people. But if we have to share a closet, the sweater situation needs to improve. Because every time I would go in the closet, I would spend literally as little time as possible when I was in there, because it would just stress me out.
Yeah. But I wear, and I will only wear like 2 sweatshirts at a time, and I will just wear them all the time.
Yeah.
But then those 2
begging the question,
why have all the other ones?
Why the Mount Everest in our closet?
But then I'll want to wear 2 different sweatshirts all the time.
And that's the thing, is that in realizing that, I was like, oh, this isn't how her brain works. But what was missing was the organizational method that allowed for coexistence. There was never an organizational method that allowed for coexistence.
Yeah.
And so that's why I basically tried to avoid our closet. The sweaters started sprouting sweaters. And before long, all that existed in the closet was sweaters, choking out all light, towering over you. But you did a great job in editing, and I'm looking forward to having a better organizational method.
Yeah. And it's even stuff like I kept all of these t-shirts that I really liked.
Yeah.
And I wasn't wearing them. And then Reader got really into wearing sleep shirts.
Yeah.
And he's been wearing all of
my
that big
Tintin shirt is getting all the use.
I know, but I love seeing him in that stuff, wearing my huge t-shirts to bed. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I am always surprised by how often things come up.
Yes, no, saving is not bad. It's just the presentation of things.
I know. And we had this little s'more set. So it was like a little flame, and then it was on a board, and then there were these little curved dishes around the edge to, I guess, put your like marshmallows and stuff in. And we never used it. It was super cute. But also, like, when you make s'mores, you want to be like outside by a fire.
Not at like a fondue set.
Not like at a fondue set. And also, those little bowls were so tiny. Like, that would never hold the amount of chocolate and graham crackers. But then I needed a soap dish. And one of those little curved dishes fit perfectly along the edge of my sink.
It did.
And I remembered that they existed somehow.
Somehow.
Like, I can't remember our credit card number, which you memorize almost instantly when we get a new one. And yet I have crockery from 5 years ago that we've never touched, like stored in my database. I think it's clear whose brain has a more useful function, but yeah, I knew it was there, and I was able to go and get it. And it was like, wow, this is great.
Yeah, it is.
So
no hate for the saving. Just, we don't have to save everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have to be more prudent and humble, and sometimes maybe a little cold-blooded about what it is that we save. Because the idea of keeping stuff in storage and then rotating it out, I am beyond okay with.
Yeah.
It's just, it can't all be out, and it can't all be saved.
I would love to do that with the boys' clothes, but I don't know if Go will ever commit to actually wearing seasonal clothes consistently.
Well, I don't know. I think his thermostat is changing somewhat. He's actually on his own wearing shorts and t-shirts like daily now.
Because there was a summer and a winter where
that was
all
weirdest
summer
year.
He insisted on wearing pants and long sleeve shirts. And then all winter he insisted on going shirtless. It was real hard to figure out what was going on. So
it was preposterous.
But yeah, maybe we're closer. All right. Final topic.
Mm-hmm.
We're short on time. How much do you have to say about the Ten Commandments?
Louisiana.
Yeah. 10 Commandments must be in schools. Except maybe not, because I think there's already a lawsuit. So I don't know if that stayed that order or what. But
I don't mind if the Ten Commandments are taught in schools.
really?
I mean, if it's in the correct context. Framing matters. Posting them with no conversation presents to the children that the Ten Commandments are to be obeyed as posted, just like any rule in the school.
Mm-hmm.
Posting the Ten Commandments alongside placards of the 7 tenets of the Satanic Temple, or the a copy of the Middle Path, like a Buddhist poem, or pick any number of religions, founding sort of like moral codes alongside each other as a compare and contrast, that I would be completely fine with without conversation, because the proximity to all of the other ones posted equally alongside each other is the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's the note behind the note. And the kids are smart. Kids will get it. But just having them up is bullshit.
Yeah.
Teaching them in context of like a comparative religion studies or mythology class is completely fine. Because then you talk about why those tenets were prized over others.
Mm-hmm.
And you can talk about property rights. You can talk about, fathers owning their daughters. You can talk about, how the Paleo Hebrews went from being polytheistic to henotheistic to monotheistic, and how the Ten Commandments sort of help chart that progress. Hell, how all of Genesis charts that progress. Like, we have a big issue in America, Christian dominionism. And obviously, like, as secular, skeptical folks who realize that posting one religion's moral codes without any conversation, expecting children to just abide by it, it flies in the face of the secularity of our founding documents, that we are required to push back.
Yeah.
We're required to push back, not just for us as secular folk, but we're required to push back for all the other religious folks who don't follow the Ten Commandments. Like, what, like, are my Muslim neighbors, or do they not count all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Like, what about the nice Wiccan lady down the street? Why is her faith all of a sudden like make her a social pariah? Like the Hindu family that, sets off all the cool fireworks. Like, I don't know why, I guess I do know why America can't shake this. But
well, I think
it feels like just like this last gasp, like a cornered animal lashing out at everything. Like, we have to put the Ten Commandments in schools because trans and stuff. I mean, it just feels real sad.
I mean, I think it's always disingenuous, right? Because all of the claims are, this is the basis for all the laws of our country. This is the basis of so much. And like, no, like, yes, it says don't steal, don't kill, but you do not need the 10 Commandments for that. Like, you don't. Every society, regardless of religious background, has gotten there because those are things you don't do because it would just make it too hard for everybody to live. So that is the most basic. What sets the 10 Commandments apart is the front half, which is all about worshiping one particular God. And that is why it is not okay to have in classrooms, and that is why they want it in classrooms.
Yep.
Because they want a declaration that their God is the right one. And it makes them feel better to have that declaration out. So it's absurd. I was in the shower this morning. I was pondering because I believe one of the arguments for it, and look, they knew it was going to be, so Louisiana put forward this bill that the 10 Commandments had to be displayed in every classroom. And it includes college, as far as I understand, which is
real weird.
Real weird, because things aren't displayed in college classrooms.
Yeah.
It would literally be the only thing up. I don't even, whatever. And they knew it would be immediately challenged. And I believe that they believe that with the absurdly religious Supreme Court that we have, that they will win, and it'll be another chance for them to push forward a Christian agenda.
It's not even a Christian agenda.
Well,
I always will push back against that because some of our staunchest allies, socially, politically, economically, environmentally, scientifically, educationally, are also Christians. They dare to speak for all Christians, which is one of the things that burns my butt more than anything about what they do, is that they have the gall, the audacity to say that they are the voice.
Got it. So
they are not.
Would it be more accurate to say like a Christian nationalist agenda?
Their sect.
Yeah. So that is clearly the point. But as part of the argument for it, they are claiming that it is a historical document. And I don't know if that is just like part of what they've said to cover themselves, or if that is actually part of the law. I should look. I haven't.
The Code of Hammurabi is a historical document. We should post that now.
But
when was that written? Ooh, before the 10 Commandments?
Doesn't that give teachers the option to interrogate it as a historical document if they so desire?
Yeah. If I were a teacher, I would start with, exactly. If I were a teacher, I would start every class pointing out something about the 10 Commandments and how we shouldn't take it at face value.
Well, I don't know about every class. Like, I think that gives it way more space than it deserves. But I think
I would encourage my students to tweet about it.
You know, this is not posted as the rules to my classroom. This is not actually a set of...
They should X about it. What is the verb now? You can't call it because it's no longer Twitter. So you can't tweet.
I don't know.
Do you X? What is the verb now?
I don't know.
I'm gonna look that up. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
You know, but these are, this is not a set of rules for the classroom. This is not necessarily the set of rules that I follow in its entirety in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been asked to post this as a historical document that many people have looked at. And interesting that we have called these 10 Commandments from a section of a religious text that actually has a lot more rules listed.
It has 2 sets of commandments.
2 sets of commandments and a lot of other rules that kind of could be considered the set of commandments. And not even every religion goes by this. Not every sect of Christianity goes by this 10. There are some people who split it up differently. And, I don't know. So I know that's asking a lot, but I am curious if anyone is going to use this as an opportunity. But also, if it's a historical text and that's why you want it up, why does it have to be in the gym? Why does it have to be in an art classroom? Why does it have to be in a math class?
Well, I mean, if it's in an art classroom, then you're going to be motivated to create very godly works. Be like the pre-Raphaelites. You'll just have like a lot of like pictures of the Virgin with her little halo and the little baby Jesus with a halo.
Isn't there like a thing about graven images in that list though?
As looking as white as like Marjorie Taylor Greene before she goes to the tanning salon.
But the graven images.
They don't care.
I know.
There's a whole flag code and they wear like American flag bikinis to Trump rallies. What they don't care. It's all performative. It's just they're a bunch of ridiculous people doing ridiculous things, and the world is going to burn because of it.
Let's wrap it up there. All right, we're out of time. We should call it. So
that sounds fine.
Unless you had many, many more things to say.
No, it's all been said. I just want the whole Louisiana thing to be an opportunity for us to have a big discussion about what religious freedom actually looks like boots on the ground religious freedom.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they it's like with the Dobbs decision, like with the repeal of Roe, how mobilized is the electorate regarding abortion rights? More than it was before. And over, we're seeing elections being won and lost based on people being pissed off about that decision. If they push too hard on this could go the same way, because America, despite what they would wish for, America is a pluralistic society, and a lot of Christians disagree with their decision too. They do not speak for all Christians, and it could very well just blow up in their faces, which is, of course, what I hope for. There is a happier ending.
Of course. Here's my sad ending. I think with Roe, that just affects too many people's direct lives. And the fact is...
Yes, of course. It's sad. People are getting hurt by it. Daily.
The thing is, most kids aren't going to give a shit about the commandments. They're not going to look at them. It's not, you know what I mean?
Nope.
It's not going to have any positive impact. And so all that's going to happen is some kids who are not in the dominant religion are going to feel slightly more ostracized, less seen.
Or depending on where they live, a lot more ostracized.
Ridiculed. And I don't know if that's going to have a big enough impact to be a kind of rallying cry the way Dobbs was. Because the fact is, a ton of people of all religions and all political bents have abortions because they're really necessary medical care. And that is something you can't get away from. This is...
Americans love their religion no matter who you're talking to. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Time will tell.
Indeed.
Time will tell.
So, this is us from the future. One of the benefits of taking kind of a ludicrous time to edit these things is that I have a long time to think about the episodes. And while I've been editing this one, I realize that I feel like I left out something really important on the discussion of the 10 Commandments. Do you want to hear what it was?
That the lizard people took over while we were editing, and they issued now a third version of the 10 Commandments.
I mean, truly anything seems possible. But
okay, what is your flippancy aside? What's your beef with the 10 Commandments, moms?
Well, so, it's funny because I'm going to be searching for a new job soon. So they always ask you those questions about what your flaws are. And I think it doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes I can be too literal about things. And as soon as I was editing, I did not feel great about how I talked about what it would mean for students of other religions or no religion in the classroom. And I think the reason why is because I was thinking about what it would mean to just have them posted on the wall. And I think I missed the biggest part of this because obviously there are going to be teachers who do an amazing job of subverting this and turning it into an actual learning experience, which we talked about. And there are going to be classrooms where it is just something that happens to be on the wall that year and is never addressed and is just one more poster that's up. But I think the real damage is going to come in classrooms where Christian nationalist teachers, or even just, Christian teachers are going to take this as a signal that they have free rein to profess their faith and to make that part of the classroom experience. And that is going to be really uncomfortable for some kids. It could be bad one day. It could be bad for a whole year. And the fact that I just didn't even think about that or bring it up is what made me feel like we had to come back and say something.
So unlike the 10 Commandments written in a book from the Iron Age, you identified a moral quandary and you went back and dynamically you're able to update your position on it.
Exactly.
Interesting. All right.
It's amazing, right?
Taketh these 15, these 10 commandments. Yeah. You know, sometimes you got to fly by the seat of your pants when you're dealing with morality.
Oh, and then once I started thinking about that, the other thing I started thinking about, which is way more subtle, is we've talked about a lot of situations where secular parents have to make decisions about how much they want to talk about religion with their kids. Because, you know, obviously it's possible to be secular and just not care about any of that at all, you know? Like
So they're making decisions about how other parents have to raise their children?
Well, yeah, but
what would they say about that if somebody made them do the same thing?
I know, but I just thought about all of these
grooming.
All of these parents who, you know, decided to just sort of leave that out and be something that they didn't have to address are now going to have to.
They're going to have that talk.
Yeah.
That all the Christian parents fear, except in this case, it's not that trans people exist in the real world. It's that, oh, these other people, they say they're Christians, like these other people say they're Christians. The only difference is that rubber meets the road. This is how they act. Some people, some teachers, some school administrators might not necessarily be nefarious in their intentions. They might genuinely think that society is helped by posting the 10 Commandments. And they have the most positive intentions. Like they could have the same positivity of intention that we would have in saying no, a classroom necessarily needs to be a secular place where everybody feels welcome. But they end up performing an action that we can like really easily skeptically identify as something that damages, that causes harm. Like I can't imagine being a kid who is very adherent, vocal about their own faith that's not this Protestant version of Christianity, and to have to live with that. Like it's easier for our kids who are not religious to have these people like talk all this religious stuff to them. And because they don't have really any skin in the game in that regard, it just is kind of be like, okay, fine, whatever. You know what I mean? But it's these other kids. What?
Or will it? I mean, that is what is.
I think they're going to be more affected by seeing their friends negatively affected by it. I think that's going to hurt them more, is seeing the harm that it would inflict on people they care about. Like,
obviously.
But anything's possible.
I don't want to take anything. I mean, really intense harm to kids that come from a different religious group. That would feel awful. And there is sort of more pressure to have to say something, because if you are religious, you can't, there would be a sense of pressure to not deny what you think is so important. Yeah. But it is an intriguing situation for secular families, because so many secular families have chosen not to address religion very much with their children for a lot of different reasons. Like this wouldn't be true in our family because we talk about this stuff all the time.
Would this fall under some sort of like ACLU guideline for suit against a school district?
Well, no, they're already being sued.
I understand, but I'm just saying but because it hasn't really been implemented in that regard yet, right? We're it's summer. We don't know what the fallout's going to really be on a case-to-case basis.
But I'm just saying it's much more of a gray area, because there are a lot of kids that probably have never identified as secular or have had to think about the fact that they are secular.
What if this actually like drives up the demographic People
I mean,
would be
knows?
forced to identify. All of a sudden, like, you start to really see how big the nuns' slice of the pie is in America.
I mean, I have no
people
idea.
Who otherwise would be. That's really
but
fascinating.
It's subtle, you know, and it's a little bit different. And in some ways, it makes it easier because you can hide. But it also could make it way more confusing because if your family is just left it as a non-issue, like, you may not even have a word for yourself. All you would know is, I am not that.
Yeah.
And this feels really uncomfortable.
Well, you could also, again, going back to actions, you could identify, I am not the sort of person that would do that to somebody else, regardless of religion. So they could even shelve that sort of like self-reflection about what I really believe, how I would label my belief or lack thereof. I'm just going to go right to the surface and say, I am, whatever it is, I am not the sort of person that would force it on other people like that.
But
like, you might just strip it away. I don't know. That is going to be an interesting set of conversations come the school year.
But I just feel for people who are stuck in this situation. It sucks all around.
Like, our kids have always had, in LA, so many Jewish friends, right? And so many Roman Catholic friends. Here, Catholic, and a lot of Muslim.
Yeah.
And again, we're not living in a place that would be affected by these laws because currently we are out of the country.
Yeah.
But just thinking, like, because people are people. I mean, it doesn't matter what country you're in. Like, it's part of humanism. Like, we share requirements for well-being and flourishing. Humans need things. And one of those things is definitely not other people forcing beliefs on them. There has to be a lot of pushback. Like, we have to actually fight because this is ridiculous. And, you know, I know I'm preaching to the choir probably because of, you know, who the sort of parents that would listen to our podcast, but we do owe it to our grandchildren and their grandchildren and their grandchildren to help bring about a society where you're not required to believe in a certain thing in a certain way. And that includes humanism. Like, I want a pluralistic society. And maybe that's just me and my blind spot. Maybe the world would be better if everybody were humanist and secular. But I don't feel comfortable making that determination because so much art has been created through inspiration of a person's religion that I'm sort of very cautious. Art and also, you know, people performing great feats of logic and engineering and scientific advancement, people who are inspired to understand the workings of what they consider to be this divine creation. Like, I'm not going to take that away from them either because we all benefit from that too. We just have to look at the harm. And I think that once we have some use cases of the 10 Commandments in classrooms, then I think we're going to have some real meat in conversation.
Yeah.
I wish we didn't. It's really depressing.
So I just have one more thing to say, which feels very appropriate at this time. You know, in this wild world. By lizard repellent. And in this wild world where it can feel very alone and very scary. I wanted to make a plug. The conference I went to last year, BajaCon, which is run by
Sarnia, Ontario.
Yeah, run by Blue Water Atheist Group, I think. It was a lovely conference. On the smaller side, all of the speakers are like right there with you. It is such a like lovely environment, and it is coming up the weekend of August 9th. And I think you can still get tickets. We obviously can't go this year because
things are weird.
moving. But if you can, you should totally go. And the lineup when I went was amazing. I would say it's probably
Hang on
even
a second.
more.
I'm gonna.
Oh no, I got it. Seth Andrews will be there. Forrest Velkai will be there.
Oh, Forrest!
And Kate Cohen will be there. So. And
wow.
There are a lot of other people too, but like those three are enough reason to go if you have the time.
So Forrest.
Yeah.
He's so cool.
And
Aaron Ra, of course.
The people who run that conference have been so kind
Josh
to
Bowen's
me.
Great.
On so many levels. So it's just like...
Oh, Hemant Mehta.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
It's quite the lineup. So
that's really cool.
Just wanted to put that out there, kind of last minute. But if you're feeling like that would be fortifying in this wild world, like, go do it. It's a ton of fun.
I wish we could go. That'd be so much fun. I would love to hear Forrest speaking.
I know.
And like pick his brain about some stuff.
I know. I saw that.
If you guys don't know like who Forrest Valkai is, he's a wonderful science educator and evolutionary biologist, and just this all around cool dude. We don't necessarily see eye to eye on everything politically, but that's okay, because it yet again bears out how atheism, secularism does not require you hold a world view. It's an answer to one specific claim or one packaged set of claims, and that's it. Anyway, BahaCon, go there. Be there, be square. We're going to be square this year.
Exactly. All right. Back to your regular scheduled programming. All right. So let's thank Jonathan Zalbin and First Frame Music for the music for this podcast.
And that wraps up this episode of The Family Skeptical, where nothing is sacred except for our kids.
My computer has been making so much noise, and all I can think about is how bad the audio is going to be.
Your computer always makes a lot of noise.
I know, but it turns off usually sometime. I feel like it's been going the entire time.
It keeps whizzing and whirring and squeaking at me.
I know. All right.
That should be what we do next, is get you a computer
that you can use. Whiz and squeak.
Yeah.